Hello and welcome to my channel. We are not going to sew today. Instead, I decided to talk about the jewelry I've collected for my Iron Age costume and what's the history of it and what kind of jewelry Iron Age Finnish women wore. Before the Viking Age, Finns used to burn their dead, and thus we don't have that much evidence of what people wore and what kind of jewelry they had. Of course, some of the jewelry survived, but there are much less finds. But from the Viking Age, the burials changed and people started burying bodies without burning them with all their clothes and jewelry. So we have some really nice finds. Using Viking Age replica jewelry is actually really popular due to this Finnish brand called Kalevala Koru, which makes Viking Age and other historical replica jewelry. The most important parts of the jewelry for the Iron Age costume for me are the bronze buckles at the shoulders, because those hold the fabulous dress in place. I wanted to have two similar kind of brooches and I wanted to have quite good replicas, and I found these. These are about 5 centimeters across and quite heavy. The pin is probably not as thick as it would have been during the Viking Age. It is a little bit more sturdy than many modern brooch pins. These have an interesting history. The piece that these brooches are based on was found in a hidden treasure. One day in 1925, a woman called Sylvi Laaksonen was digging dirt for her flowers and her shovel hit a treasure which was full of bronze jewelry. Archaeologists came and they realized that it's a treasure full of bronze jewelry, buckles, rings, brooches from several centuries. Most of them were quite damaged. They are missing pieces. Somebody have used knife to chip off pieces of the jewelry. There are chain hangers that are broken, and they think it's unlikely that originally these pieces of jewelry belong to the same era or the same person in a way, because the daughters didn't wear the brooches their mothers and grandmothers had, because the jewelry went to the grave with the deceased. So a girl wouldn't have owned a brooch that was 200 years old. What the scientists actually think is that these are robbed grave goods. That there was a bronze smith who had robbed a lot of graves from the previous centuries, from the times when they used to burn the dead. So he has gone and robbed a lot of graves, and all these brooches are his hoard, and he has probably used them to melt them to make new jewelry, and that's why they are missing pieces. Of course, they might have been also damaged by the fire. But yeah, it tells something about the morals of the people. Perhaps he didn't go to dig up the graves of his ancestors. Perhaps he went to the next village and robbed their graves. I don't know. But it's quite interesting. For some reason, the smith never came back to dig up his hoard, and thus we have this weird pile of miscellaneous broken bronze jewelry. These brooches have been dated to be from the 9th century or from around the year 800 based on the design on them. From the buckles, chains were hanged, just like in a Viking dress. But usually women had some kind of chain hangers between the brooches and the chains. And I found these two vintage pieces. I think they are from the 1940s, also made by Kalevala Koru. One of them is silver, one of them is made of an unknown metal. It's really silvery. It's really hard to see the difference between these two, but this is silver, this is not. And they are similar to the chain hangers that have been found in Iron Age graves. This kind of circle or spiral motif has been really common, and there are several kinds of variants from this kind of design. And these were hanging from the shoulder buckles, and then the chains were hanged from here. Chains. I found these chains that are brass colored. I don't know actually what metal they are. They are going to hang from the chain hangers from one shoulder to another. I can fasten them together like this, and have the ends of the chains hanging so that I can hang more jewelry pieces to them. Then I have this little brooch. It has this interesting design. There's like two animal heads on both ends. These have been found from Jewellery, and they are from the 5th century. These are a little bit too early for a Viking Age dress, but they are not too dissimilar to the ones that would have been worn during the Viking Age, so I chose to include this. I'm going to hang this from the chains, and then I'm going to use this to pin the folded edge of my peplus to the fabric underneath so that it doesn't hang loose. That was very often part of this kind of dress. Then I have this tiny bird. It's actually a brooch, but there's also a little loop from which it could be hanged. Original find is from the 11th century Turku. I cannot show you the original find because there are no pictures of it online, but there are several different bird brooches and pendants that have been found in Finnish Iron Age digs. They are often quite stylized. There are several types of these pendants. The ones that are flat and have this kind of cutaway pieces are quite common. And then there are those a little bit bigger ones, some of them which resemble horses or other animals mixed with earth-like features, and they have hanging pendants, and those are also pretty common. This almost looks like a seahorse. It's kind of cute.
Hi, Editing Katja here. While I was still editing this video, I came across this bird pendant at the thrift store, and it's based on a Viking Age find from Hattula in Finland. So I decided to include this to my dress as well. I decided to show you another brooch because I found the original archaeological find online, and it's interesting to compare this brooch that has been made by Kalevala Koru to the original find. This is silver, and when I look at the original find, it's not exactly the same. There have been some liberties taken. But this is also interesting because this is not a Finnish design. Although it has been found in Finland, I'll put it down where it has been found. It's from the 4th century and it's Germanic design. So it also tells that even if we are here in the north, there has been trade and connections all the way to Germany. And talking about connections, there is more. Mentioned the connections to other countries. A lot of coins have been found. The thing is, they didn't have much point in making coins in Finland. We didn't have arranged society with kings and lords at that time. There were so few Finns living here, so everybody had enough land, and there really weren't big towns, just small villages. So
there was really no need for money. But of course people traded and got money, and they saw the coins as really nice pieces of jewelry. So what they often did was that they took their nice Byzantine coins, for instance, and they drilled a hole in them and used them as necklaces. I found these replica Byzantine coins from Finnish National Museum shop, and I did exactly what my Iron Age ancestors would have done, and I drilled a hole, I bent a piece of brass and then stuck a small nail through it, and then cut the nail from the other side and hammered the end so that it makes this kind of very fastening that keeps the coin hanging nicely in my necklace. From the same museum shop I found some Viking Age glass bead replicas, and I bought some of them, and then I added some modern glass beads, because glass beads are basically glass beads, and I made this necklace that would have been really fashionable during the Iron Age. I know that the Viking women often hang these kind of necklaces from their shoulder brooches, but in Finland women usually just hang these from the neck like a proper necklace. I don't know what kind of mechanism they use to enclose the necklaces, but I made a small loop from this waxed string and tied one bead to the end of the other end, and so I can just use this to close my necklace. I could add a few extra accessories that I made that are not complicated enough to warrant a video of their own. One of them is this veil. This is like perhaps 90 centimeters across, square, and I've hemmed all the edges with a narrow hem by hand, and that's basically it. I can then drape it over my head, tie it with a band, or use veil pins to pin this in place, or I could just use this as a big scarf. There are archaeological finds where tablet woven bands have been woven to the edge of the veil, and the band has been the piece that goes then for the forehead and then helps to keep the veil in place. And then the last piece of clothing I made is this cape. For this I found a really cheap woolen blanket that is right kind of weave, 2x2 twill, but it was 100% wool, and I dyed it to this kind of a nice pink color using modern dyes, and the original grey would have been really boring and a little bit, it didn't feel so natural as this new pink color does. I cut a piece off so that this is now about perhaps 85 centimeters high, and I hemmed the long edges. This time I didn't add any decorations, but there have been really many examples of tablet woven bands at the edges of these capes, and also kind of really nice bronze spiral ornaments that have been woven into the fringes of this kind of capes. But right now I've done so much weaving, so I decided to leave those for later. But this would have been worn just like this, perhaps fastened with a brooch. Oh, and yes, I have a brooch for this. And it's a forged iron penannular brooch. It looks like this. It has this kind of horseshoe shaped ring and then a pin. And how do you use this? You take your cloth, you put your pin through, and then you turn the ring so that the pin stays in place, and there you go. So here are all the things that I've collected, and it's a collection that keeps growing when I find new stuff on the flea market. These kind of jewelry are really common in flea markets because for years these have been a very popular present, and almost every woman and men have
these kind of Kalevala Koru jewelry pieces in their cupboards, and not everyone wants to wear them. So these keep popping up all the time, and especially these bronze ones are not that expensive. So thank you for watching, and please comment down what you thought about Finnish Iron Age jewelry, and please subscribe to my channel, and if you want you can always buy me a coffee. The next time you will see how the peplos turned out. See you then. Bye!